Good morning or good afternoon. Thank you for all coming to our session on education for sustainable development in maths. We have some fantastic speakers. Our first one is Adrian. So his bio is on LinkedIn, but Adrian has been a maths teacher. I think was it 8 years, Adrian?
Yeah,
Yeah,
about that. 8 years, yeah.
yeah. So can we please welcome Adrian for our first presentation? Adrian, would you like to share your screen?
Yep. Okay, so yeah, hello everyone. My name's Adrian, and just to give you some further introductions, so I'm currently working in Almaty in Kazakhstan, which is a very beautiful city if you're lucky to visit. I teach in an international school, an IB World School, so I teach in the MYP and diploma program. And the grades I teach are grade 9, 10, 11, and 12, so that upper high school grades. I teach them mathematics. I also am the service learning coordinator. And this past year, as the Global Schools program advocate, I've had the chance of implementing ESD in both the service learning program at my school and also in my maths lessons. So just to give an overview of my presentation, I'm just going to be looking at how I've implemented the competencies, the ESD competencies in my lessons. So looking at how I've done it with my assessments, the investigations that I've done, the hooks and how I've had activities to kind of get student interest before we've gone on to study a topic. And then also at the start of lesson, looking at inclusion activities and how I've implemented the competencies there. And then just at the end, just to give my own personal reflections and kind of next steps that I'm looking to do as well. So in terms of starting from the end, what I'm talking about there is just my assessments. So I've had experience before of kind of contextualizing assessments and giving students a chance to solve real world problems. So as a global school advocate, I wanted to now make an explicit link to assessments and sustainable development. So this is just an example from a grade 9 class in their number unit where they were being assessed on their rounding and scientific notation competency. So the first thing was just kind of setting the scene for students, so giving them a brief that they're now a senior analyst at the UN, and they're looking at a specific issue, which is climate action, and just giving students a chance to explore more information if they needed to about climate action. Then when it was time to get into the maths, students also had a problem, which was a contextualized problem. So in this case, they were looking at calculating the tax that would be implemented for countries for those who have the highest carbon emissions, the 4 highest countries with the highest carbon emissions. If they were taxed, how much money could we generate from them? And then the other option was, which came from the Indian Prime Minister, which is instead looking at taxing countries with the highest CO2 emissions per person. So in this case, students are just still doing scientific notation work, but now it's kind of within a certain context. And so what this led to then was their final task, which was then making a decision about which of those tax options would get more money. And so this gave students a chance to practice their normative competency, which is then looking at kind of, you have 2 options which could have real life consequences. So which one should we go down the route of? Should we tax the countries with the most emissions, or should we tax the countries with the most emissions per person? And I think what was quite nice about this activity was students were able to draw on their knowledge from other subjects such as INS. And when they were making their decision, they were able to think about other kind of factors that they need to consider. And thinking about whether just getting the most amount of money, is that always going to lead to the best possible solution? So next is then looking at types of investigations that I've done. So again, I've done these before in lessons, but this time I wanted to kind of, again, link it to sustainable development. So this was a grade 11 class where we were looking at the topic of functions, and the objective for the lesson was students looking at the modeling cycle and then just going through each step to see what it was like. So they were just given an initial video to watch, which was just a bathtub filling up with water. And then we just went through a very simple template where students just wrote down any thoughts that they had, any questions about the video they were watching. Then they could think about any real world problems that this video relates to, some So what came from that was some students were thinking about the amount of waste, water waste, that came from filling up the bath with water, and is it better to have a shower? Is it better to have a bath? What's more efficient? Then students looked at developing a model. So this is now the maths part. So students were looking at what variables could they measure, such as the rate of water that comes out of the tap. Then they went to test their model, coming up with a solution. So how much water is needed to fill up an average bathtub, for example. Then came time for the reflection on their model. So how does the results link to the context of this problem, the real world problem, if we're doing baths versus showers? And then students had a look at extending their model. How could they improve it? So the most important part for this process with links to ESD was the reflection part. And this gave us the chance to talk about the Sustainable Development Goal number 6. So the idea of clean water and sanitation, and what is the sanitation process in different countries, and just giving us a chance to discuss this kind of really important issue. And so from this, students were able to look at the integrated problem solving competency. So the idea of coming up with solutions for problems, and it was very trivial solutions that we kind of spoke about, but students kind of got the idea of thinking, having a 20-minute shower is probably not the most efficient use of water. And then they came up with kind of very simple ideas of just, turning off the tap, maybe avoid having baths as well. So it's very kind of small scale action, but at least it was some action that came from a maths lesson, which was quite nice. So next then is just looking at hooks. So this was a grade 10 lesson where we're looking at growth and decay. And so normally in lessons, before introducing a topic or a concept or a specific key, I kind of like to have a hook to get students interested. And if those hooks are applicable to real life, then I think that goes a long way in their engagement. So again, it's just trying to link this hook directly to Sustainable Development Goals. So in this example, students were just looking at a graph, and they just had various questions about the wages, the annual wages from year to year in various countries. And so for this particular activity, students have a chance to just do a stand-up, hand-up, pair-up, where they're answering the question with different classmates and given their individual perspectives. And so the ESD competency that the students got to demonstrate here was the collaboration one, so that students sharing their ideas and perspectives with each other. And so another resource which I think was really quite helpful, and I can share it in the chat as well, is with these type of activities where it's a little bit, I guess, more conversation based. There's a great resource on Harvard Education where they have structures to help facilitate students giving their perspectives and sharing their opinions as well. And I can quickly just show you what that looks like. So here it gives the students the chance to specific perspective taking structures where students can share their ideas, and then there's loads of others where students can structures which are available for students to have, I guess, debate as well. And there's other ones about investigating and introducing, exploring ideas as well. So yeah, so this competency is really nice, and it kind of falls into how I normally run lessons, having students work together. But it's a little bit different maybe because it's a bit more conversation based and sharing ideas. And so the next one then is kind of now going back to the start of lessons, is the inclusion activities where students just have a chance to share their opinion, share their voice, and just get involved in something quite low stakes, so they're able to participate in the rest of the lesson with more confidence. So in this case, it's just a very simple idea of having students draw what they think the world would look like in 2030, or describe, if they don't want to draw, describe what the world will look like in 2030. And this had students practice the anticipatory competency, so students thinking about the future whilst kind of addressing the problems and threats that we face today. So just some final reflections on my part and next steps that I kind of want to explore. I found that implementing the ESDs into my maths classroom really gave some rich cross-curricular opportunities and give students a chance to see that maths isn't isolated, and that we can make links to other subjects like INS or history and geography even. Also, the question that students love to ask is, when will we ever use this, what we're doing in maths? So I think having those real life examples and opportunities and assessments for students to make decisions based on, data analysis or anything else, decisions that have consequences. I think that's really useful in their engagement and thinking how useful maths actually is. In terms of my own personal next steps, I do want to look at the other competencies that there are, such as systems thinking, strategic critical thinking, self-awareness. I think those are really great documents shared with us, and it had the competencies examples for STEM subjects. So they gave you examples of what activities you could do. So that's something I'm looking to do next year in my classroom. And then finally, maybe this is a bit more of a long term, but how can I vertically align these competencies across a maths curriculum to make sure every single one is maybe met at the start, met within a year, or met over a child's, kind of career in high school maths. Yeah, so that's it for me. Thank you very much for listening, and I can share any links in the chat.
Thank you, Adrian. I think as a maths teacher, because I was a maths teacher for 14 years, I think you get a lot of questions from young people saying, when are we ever going to use this? I think that's really important that we make it a real life problem so that they can understand, especially if we're going to think about scientists and, geographers all over around the world, especially with like sea levels and things like that. We can really make it purposeful. Thank you so much, Adrian, for that. So next up is Lizzie. Lizzie has had over 15 years experience in maths and is currently educating over in the Middle East, I think, if that's correct, Lizzie. Would you like to share your screen and start your presentation?
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. And suddenly technology is being...
It's great when it works.
Oh, I can't find my share button.
Down at the bottom. Is it green?
There.
Yeah.
Oh. Right, good afternoon. My name is Lizzie Muringi. I'm Zimbabwean based in the Middle East. Have been here for about 15 years. Just to add background to my presentation, I work in a government institute. I teach local students. And one of the few features of our school is our curriculum is very content heavy. So this sets the background for just introducing anything new to already heavy content. Sustainability education in mathematics for success. One of the few things I learned when I had to introduce the sustainability features to my teaching and learning was that you've got to think small and grow big. So because of the content, I couldn't come up with anything wow that would disrupt the learning. We've got a tight timeline, and when we began at the start of the last academic year, it was dropping in ideas on what do you think about this in relation to the topic we're learning. So if we were learning, for example, when we did timelines, what do you think, how long do you think the world resources are going to last if we continue to use them at the current rate we're using? So we started by just dropping off ideas. I started off by dropping off ideas and planting seeds. And then eventually, I think the students figured out that she's planting seeds and they would come back and they'll have questions. So within the space of about 2 months, we then introduced a 5-minute session at the start of the lesson where you would come in and you'd give the class a real life application of something mathematical, but it had to be related to the global goals. And it was really unique because the students were now able to bring up ideas and think about the solutions themselves. It wasn't the teacher driving it. It wasn't me driving any ideas. It was them. And then, why don't we calculate this in relation to our school? Let's calculate the mass of waste we are using or producing in the school, and how many trees are being killed in relation to the paper we're wasting every single day when we write on paper. Next, we just came up with some eco-friendly practices. These were student-driven. So they did a waste audit project within the school. And when it started, it was just within our maths class. But because we have a subject called project design, they were able to take the idea and introduce it into their project design lesson, and it became cross-curricular. Now they had to link it with all the other subjects. The waste we're producing, can it be used or utilized somewhere else, and how best to utilize it? The uniqueness of this was you could actually see how ideas grew from the start of the academic year right through to the end. With the waste audit project, it ended up with design competition at the end of the academic year, which we just gave out prizes for right now, where we calculated the waste. They took it to project design, and their teacher in project design asked, what can you do with the waste? And then they had to design either a bridge or an evening dress. And I think the winner made an evening dress out of black plastic bags. And they had to supply, for the maths parts, for my specific maths part, they had to supply statistics, data on every single product they used, what would have it meant environmentally if it had been thrown away, and what's the environmental implications on recycling and the carbon footprint all of these activities have had. The biggest thing we did, I think the biggest success for us in the maths classroom was the carbon footprint calculator. There's a website that allows students to enter in their data and calculates their carbon footprint. It helped mathematically, and also just to bring home the idea of the global goals, because students never quite think of it in a global or a community impact thing. You drive to school instead of catching the bus, how much carbon dioxide is emitted by the different cars on the road. And anyone who lives in the Middle East, specifically Dubai, Sharjah, and Ajman, will know that the traffic in peak hour is horrendous. And just how much carbon dioxide is emitted by these cars versus by you catching the bus, and the government initiative on introducing electronic vehicles or hybrid vehicles. How sustainable is it? How does it reduce carbon? How does it impact the carbon footprint of the country as a whole? I think this particular idea became a big success in our school, because teaching in the Middle East, there's always an ethnical, religious, and cultural consideration. And whilst some other things might be total no's in other parts of the world, they're the norm here. So everybody drives an SUV. In fact, if you drive a small car, there's something wrong. And so getting students to think a certain way and to actually link it to their everyday life and their practices is a slow but worthwhile journey. And this was one of the biggest take homes for the students with the the carbon footprint calculator. They were able to apply it and then take the program home and have their families calculate their carbon footprint and then bring back the calculations. And we had a little competition in our class. Who's the greatest waster? How much are you wasting? What's your impact? Can you adjust your diet according to your carbon footprint? And how will adjusting your diet affect you as a person, as an individual, your health, and also your community, and probably the country as a whole? As we moved through, I think as we became more comfortable with sustainable ideas in mathematics, our department created what we call the grid. These are all ideas that we use as rewards for our students, according to what they achieve. So you meet the curriculum demands, we teach our lesson, and we have 5-10 minutes. We bank those 5-10 minutes, and then at the end of the week, at the end of the week, you get to pick an activity off the grid. Now, the activity is not just a one-off activity. It's actually an activity that can be conducted over days, weeks, depending on the different variables you add to it. And this was a success for our department because half the time teachers don't have the time to come up with any exciting activities. And during our planning week, at the start of every term, we've added onto this grid, we've refined it, we've removed things that don't work and added activities that work. We've added activities that are fun for the students based on their feedback. And we've also got the school admin to partner in, because we can't get permission for school trips unless the school admin approves it. And with us, because we're a government institute and approval comes from head office, basically. So it's exciting to see how a small idea grew from just being in-class activities, moved out to students actually introducing these activities and ideas into their different subjects, cross-curriculum, and then had the buy-in eventually of the whole school. So we've got hopes and dreams that next year it will be bigger. And basically that's my presentation.
Thank you, Lizzie. I love the idea of a scavenger hunt. That sounds really fun. But I think when you're engaging your people so they can have that choice of an activity at the end, I think that will keep them going. It'll keep them engaged. It'll keep them more kind of like, you know, develop that love of nature, hopefully. So well done. That's really good. Do you enjoy teaching it?
I love it. It's a challenge, and it really challenges me as an educator to think outside the box.
Yeah, I can tell your passion shines through. So well done for that. So next up we have Hema, and 20 years of experience. She's also been a global schools advocate, an alumni and mentor. So would you like to share your screen now, please?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to whoever you are. It's evening over here. We have started off it's almost 6 o'clock in the evening. I'm from India. A short brief about me. I'm the school I'm currently in is 3 years old. We started off during the COVID time, and I joined as a primary coordinator and then moved on to become the secondary coordinator. And now I'm the learning and operations coordinator at the school. So I was in the cohort during the COVID time, the Global Schools Advocate. And last year I was a mentor. This year, I mean, for this cohort, I was a mentor. And I basically, I mean, after the cohort of the advocates, I spread the ESD in my school. Our director is an ambassador, a green ambassador. Our school is a green school, though it's 3 years old. We are trying our best to, I mean, bring in all strategies, I mean, to make it more greener and sustainable. And here are a few activities. And thank you, Adrian and Lizzie. I mean, that was a great contribution from your end. And like mine is going to be a little different, where I've just talked about some activities, I've just picked out a few activities which I've been doing in the primary and the secondary level. And moving on further, I'm just going to talk about the clubs. I mean, the students have started the student-driven clubs at school, which was a motivated factor because of these sustainable development goals at school. Yeah, so yeah, we all know what ESD is. I mean, I definitely know that, I mean, you're all aware of the education and sustainable development. It equips students to develop the knowledge, skills, and values to contribute to the sustainable development goals, the 2030 goals as of now. And yes, so it's a huge challenge for most of the educators or facilitators to integrate sustainability or into the education, and especially for math educators, because it's all about numbers, calculations, and how is that, I mean, we're going to integrate ESG in math. That's been a question, I mean, for a long time. I know, like, I mean, people who are here, I mean, would like resonate with me. But then, yes, there are ways, even in those simple tasks every day, I mean, we can integrate ESG into our math learning. And I have a few activities. I've just specifically taken a few activities, some 6 to 7 activities. I'm just going to show you, like, I mean, what the activity is, what is the math connection, and how is it going to relate to the sustainability. Yeah, so this, I mean, I know that as Adrian said, I mean, yeah, it develops analytical thinking, critical thinking, problem solving in the children. And moreover, it develops a sense of responsibility and the ownership of, they see them as a part of the world. Yeah, and my first ever thing is counting and recycling. Elementary activity in mathematics, okay, for the primary children. Very simple. We ask them to, I mean, pick some items, recyclable items around the school or at home. And then, I mean, we ask them to categorize that, count them, and sort them into different categories. There's a huge map beside this, which talks about basic counting skills, adding, and categorization statistics. Simple statistics by tallying the number of items in each category and comparing the quantities. Very simple, but then how am I going to relate that to sustainability? When they're collecting these recyclable items, we can talk about the importance of recycling in reducing waste and conserving resources, and how this recycling is going to help them in minimizing the environmental impact of waste. Children come with beautiful ideas. You just need to spark that discussion. You just need to give that spark. That's it. And what is that role each individual can play in promoting that sustainable environment by recycling? So as an individual, the child starts thinking. As they're doing the activity, they're doing math, as well as they're learning something where they are contributing knowingly or unknowingly to the bigger world, to the greener world. The second activity, again, with measurements, we all, I mean, across grades, in primary, we have, even in higher secondary, we have, across grades, we have measurements. Yeah, when we are talking about liquids, the amount of water which the child uses every day, it could be at home with the family members, or let them start with themselves first for brushing their teeth or washing their hands, or even if watering plants. We'll give them some measuring cups. This is what we had done, and water meters to help them accurately measure the quantities. So what is that math behind that? So units of measurements, liters, milliliters, and basic arithmetic operations like addition and subtraction can be done. And moreover, children record their measures, compare the water usage for different activities. They start thinking, okay, what is the total water quantity, the quantity of water which has been used over this period? Is it more? Is it less? How can I reduce that? That is where, I mean, we need to play a major role. It's just the spark what we need to develop. And what does that got to do with sustainability? Yeah, it teaches them the importance of water conservation and the impact of water waste in the environment. How small actions like turning off the tap while brushing teeth or fixing small leaks, even in schools, I've seen kids coming and telling that, I mean, there's a water leakage there. Okay, can we call the, I mean, person, I mean, to just fix that, to significantly reduce that water wastage and highlight the global significance of water conservation. And my third activity talks about a garden project. we have a liaison with the Yard and Garden. I mean, that's a garden. They do hydroponics and all that. We are planning to have a hydroponics section in our school. Motivated by that. So start a small garden. We have started a small garden in the school. We have encouraged students to grow plants. We call that as Kasturi Vanam. Vanam in the local language, means forest. So this has been a practice. When a child comes, we give them a sapling. That's the welcome thing, which is given to the child, and the child plants that sapling in that Kasturi Vanam. And the child, has got that liberty to go check the growth of the plant, record that. Okay, so that's amazing. And now, we have a sister concern school as well, which is like nearly 12 or 13 years old. So even students from that school, have planted trees there, and now it has crossed 1,000 in number. Okay, so that's an amazing thing. It's just right, like opposite to our building. Yes, and so that is another thing. And we have students plant seeds, water them regularly, and track the growth of plants, tracking the growth of plants and measuring the plant. And this again comes under measurement as well. Count the number of leaves and record the growth in a journal. A record sheet is given to them. Now the math behind that is measurement skills, centimeter, meter. They learn to create and interpret graphs, plotting the plant growth over time. Graph, basic arithmetic operations to calculate the average growth rates. And more, how beautifully we can teach them concepts of geometry, like the symmetry, using those leaves. Okay, children, look each and every single factor in the plant when it is there, the ones which they have planted, and even fractions, like what portion of the garden is planted, how much is left, and so on. And what is that sustainability things? Okay, growing your own food, importance of plant in the ecosystem, and how gardening helps reduce carbon footprints by producing the local food. So we're going from local to global. That is the theme behind that, and improving air quality, promoting biodiversity. Moreover, sustainable agricultural methods, ensuring food security and environmental health. And that goes with Life on Land, SDG 15. Energy consumption, and that was a beautiful project, which our children did. I'll just come to the later section of that. How it has been a great thing in our school, great success in our school. This was one of the projects which our children did. The energy consumption. They started how the energy consumption at home for a week. It was for a month or 3 months, which we had given a schedule. And they noted that daily usage and which devices, were highly consuming energies. And they use this data to create bar graph, line graph, so that to visualize, the energy consumption patterns. It is a very good activity to teach average, percentage of consumption of each thing, and even algebra, calculating the cost. You can use algebra, can be very well used there, and to identify the trends. Now, coming on to the sustainability part, we discussed the importance. After the 3-month period, when they noted that down, they started discussing about the importance of reducing the energy consumption to lower the carbon emissions. So that to help the climate change. And what are the energy saving tips, such as turning off lights? They're now very mindful when they turn off lights, when they move outside the classroom, and all those things, like turning off the AC when it's not in use. When the fans are running, turning off the AC, or when the AC is on, turning off the fans. So it's all child driven, student driven, and utilizing renewable energy resources. So how to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions and promote a sustainable future. And the next activity is the carbon footprint calculation. Yes, so this is another activity, where we have this carbon footprint. Lizzie had mentioned about that. We have this online carbon footprint pen calculators. I mean, so those could be shared with the students and the worksheets to help them quantify the emissions. Like, yes, now a few of our students have started, I mean, coming to school in cycle, and like, I mean, children, I mean, whoever had come in their own vehicle have, not everyone, but slowly there is a small change. I will not say that's a major change. There's a small change where children have started taking the school vehicle, a school transport, a common transport, instead of, I mean, each one coming in a vehicle. So they have become more mindful about that. And here they use mathematical concepts like, I mean, all calculations and the unit conversions, I mean, to calculate the carbon emissions. That is one part of mathematics which can be used here, analyzing the data. So most of these, I mean, integration into mathematics is all data driven. It's all data driven decisions, like, I mean, whatever we are taking here. Yeah. So, I mean, so this, we can encourage students to reflect on their lifestyle choices and to consider ways to reduce their carbon footprint, conserving energy, using renewable resources, and practicing sustainable transportation and adopting a plant-based diet. Mathematical modeling, I mean, as Adrian pointed out of you, I'm not going to touch more on this because this is going to be dealing with, I mean, he has beautifully explained that, I mean, of how mathematical modeling can be done in the higher classes, I mean, allowing them to think, I mean, reflect upon that towards the end, and how to expand that further. Okay, so you can have a school recycling program, create an energy saving plan, develop a rain harvesting system. And I just need to mention here, I mean, we have, this has led us, we do have a SDG Impact Club at school, a student-driven club. And this student-driven club has come up with this plan of using recycled notebooks this academic term. Currently, we are in vacation. I'm in June 17th, the school is reopening. And this time, the notebooks and books which we ordered are all recycled books. We have, I mean, sent the old notebooks, the used notebooks, and given it to the organization with whom we have liaised, and we have got all recycled notebooks, recycled pencils, and recycled pens. So this is going to be of use. Even the papers, I mean, which we are going to use for print are going to be recycled papers. They have taken a clear count of how many notebooks were used last year. I mean, how many went unused. What is it? How could we save on that carbon footprint? And that was devised so beautifully. And a huge kudos, I mean, to those student committee members, I mean, who had taken this, and the student mentors, like, who had helped them in that. And there's another one club which was started by our student community, the Eco-Phylum Club, because we have a river, I mean, which runs, I mean, besides a little closer to our school, called the Noyal River, which is polluted. So this Eco-Phylum Club are now doing a research. They are devising a plan on how to transform that plastic waste which is accumulating in that river into sustainable solution. So they are working with the local organizations. Okay, that is another I mean, thing which I need to mention. So we are starting with the global thing and moving, I mean, we're starting with the local thing and then moving on globally. Yeah. So I'm not going to touch more on this, like, because this has already been discussed. And the SDGs, I mean, with which problem solving, another thing, this also, I mean, Adrian had touched upon the problem solving of how we can give them the data. The data should be the real data. It should be the real data. It's not any random data, I mean, which is already printed in any textbook. Give them the real data, like COVID-19 data, or the data now on pollution in your city, in a country. Give them the real data on education, literacy. Give them some real data, and then ask them to, I mean, analyze the data, identify the trends, and ask them to solve, and they'll come with beautiful solutions. Yeah, and this is something where I thought, like, I mean, my email, I'll just share it in the chat box. I mean, you can just reach out to me. So there are a few resources which are available, I mean, which definitely will help you all, because I have taken help from all of these resources to conduct activities at school, which is just going to help all of our math educators, I mean, to integrate ESG in our math lessons. And you could see quite a few chapters are there, like, I mean, which you would be wanting. I mean, how can I integrate ASD into this? There are quite a few chapters. I'm sorry if I'm running out of time. And these are the interdisciplinary projects. I mean, this has been a part and parcel of our education system. Ours is an international school. We are an IG and an IB school. So we have this interdisciplinary projects, and we have this year-end exhibitions where we showcase these things to the parents. So I'll just show you a glimpse of one interdisciplinary project with grade 6, like how we have integrated all the subjects. The one which had the energy consumption is over here. And along with that energy consumptions, like what are the other subjects, I mean, which the teachers have integrated with that? So there's one topic, energy, which has been bifurcated into, I mean, different subjects. And then, like, I mean, how we had presented it so beautifully. Okay, and this year we had the year end, we had the theme as sustainability, in which our middle school, I mean, they created a greenhouse. Grade 7, they made a sustainable park where we had to use, I mean, I've just given you the listed out, since I have only 10 minutes of time, I'm not able to elaborate on that. I've just jotted there, I mean, what exactly in math we have done in that particular project. And grade 7 did on sustainable park. Yes, I mean, so the cost effectiveness of the design and all that, the materials which are being used. And grade 8 did on sustainable fashion. I really like the idea, I mean, which Lizzie told. I mean, this the fashion with that bags, the plastic bags with the waste bags, like, I mean, what they made, the evening dress. I mean, so I resonated the idea with that. I mean, so beautifully they made it. Okay, so this is what is happening. There's much more, I mean, to do. There's a big plan which is there for the year. I mean, so that's it. And I think the question session is towards the end. Thank you, Amanda, for the opportunity, and thank you all. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you for that. I think as what I picked up from there, you've done absolutely loads. It's really good what you've been doing. You're developing those life skills as well, so the young people can go, you know, they've planted that sapling, they've got that to look after and got lots of data from it, but actually you're teaching them some really good skills for the future. So yes, as mentioned, we'll have a question answer at the end if that's okay. So next person that is up is Beza, and Beza is a passionate educator. Looking at her bio, amazing things with emergency services and Braille. So Beza, would you mind sharing your screen, please?
Of course.
Thank you.
Right, give me a thumbs up. Are you able to see it? Full screen?
A little bit bigger.
Yeah,
Perfect.
okay, great. Excellent. Hello, everyone. I'm Beza, and today the title of my presentation is going to be Empowering Inclusive Math Education, specifically focused on visually impaired and or ADHD students. A little about me. I'm currently based in Richmond, Virginia, I'm Ethiopian. I'm currently the co-founder of 2 nonprofits, which are Logic High Science, which is an education nonprofit aiming to exponentially better the scientific development and research in Eastern Africa, so that most of our research are pipelined towards addressing the challenges we're facing in the community. And also Paragon and Partners, which is a consulting firm, consulting K-8 and K-12 students to apply for graduate programs across seas. And I have been at public schools in India, and currently a bit phased out from like teaching, and I'm more focused on research. Specifically, right now, a lot of the things I do is on accessibility, and I have gotten my literacy Braille certification, Braille certification, and I'm also a licensed ADHD instructor. And most of the work we do is on accessibility and why accessibility matters. And I'm hoping that most of the work we do ensures equal opportunities for individuals and students with any and or circumstances, and we try to foster supportive and a very diverse learning environment. And we have a specific emphasis on the Sustainable Development Goals. I mainly focus on quality education and also reducing inequalities that we have in our current education system. And currently, my current focus is on ADHD and visual impairment. And just so that, we're all on the same page, ADHD or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is marked by an ongoing pattern of inattention and it can happen hyperactivity, impulsivity that impairs with functioning or development. And especially in education, this can be a lot of the start of a lot of barriers for a couple of folks, and especially in the third world countries, even understanding what ADHD is with or without education has been something I've been struggling with, because we don't necessarily have like the common knowledge back there, and they would need to understand ADHD to begin with, and then understanding its impact on learning, and then address the systems they have so that they can address it. And so most of the work I've been doing was collecting a lot of data on the different ADHD patterns I see in my classroom, and also connect it to the different researches that have been done across the countries, and showing that if we were to implement different tools and tactics, that these students will not fall behind in class, and they'll be able to do as well as their peers, even though they have this learning disability. And most of the stuff that I was doing was, and again, educating myself and also conducting a lot of research so that it's visible for the individuals who are not in the classroom with me, and also tailoring a lot of teaching methods, learning from the giants before me, and seeing that what type of interactive and multi-sensor activities they do, especially in math. It might be a bit difficult to have a visual aid and manipulate the different learning tactics that we have, because usually it's plus or minus and it's on a paper. So how do we make it exciting? How do we make it more like sensory so that we don't lose the focus of those individuals? And the other thing was just, and again, sometimes we're not always blessed with the different technology that we use. And so most of the things I was doing with, if we were to send them slides, if we were to send them homeworks, how do we make sure that they're accessible or they're like user friendly, so that people can be more engaged, and then we can have more attention in the students, and then sharing my findings with the school board, and also my other colleagues, so that they can get a sense of inspiration and also spread it across the country and the nation. And hopefully there'll be other better, if not better, models that can be used so that we can help these folks. And then the other one was about visual impairment. And again, so that we're all on the same page, visual impairment is a term used to describe any vision loss, whether they can't see at all or they have partial vision loss. And then how do we address it in a specific setting? And especially for countries like Ethiopia, we don't necessarily have a lot of special ed schools, schools for the deaf, schools for the blind. Usually, if you're not born in the capital city, education is going to be a very unlikely event for you, because there aren't a lot of specialized school. Then there are certain things that we can integrate, so that even though if that specific individual is not able to travel to the capital, to these special schools that also have a lot of barriers to even join to begin with, if they're not able to do so, then we're excluding them from a wide range of things they might be interested in, and they can also be an active part of community. However, education is a very vital thing for those folks. So if we're negating them from those places, then they're not able to support themselves and support the country. So how do we integrate those things? And so initially it was through literally it's Braille transcription. And so I took upon myself to learn Braille initially, because I wanted to understand it myself before having to preach to the choir. And then once you have your literacy, and then you can further develop and get math. Currently, I'm working on my math certification. And so I've taken initiative to learn. And so our library initially did not have a section for Braille because one, we didn't have a student who needed it, and there wasn't really much of a need for it to begin with. But then once we have had a whole section of Braille, there are a lot of people from the community and a lot of people who had kids who were blind or visually impaired, but then kept them home because they didn't think that the different schools were not suitable for them. And so now we had a lot of engagement, a lot of parents thinking, oh, I can actually bring my kid to school and they can learn even ABCs starting from there. And then most of the things are, if they have a very, very solid foundation, they can also enroll in different after schools program and also connect with other folks across the globe so that they can have that support system that initially wasn't there. And so initially started with me, and then a lot of folks were as interested to learn Braille as much as possible and wanted to learn if one teacher was responsible for 2 students at least. And if we had 10 students within the community who needed Braille, needed to learn Braille at least to understand math and also English, that was a little bit of an undertaking that we did. And also the visibility. We didn't really have any budget allocated in our school because then again, we didn't identify those individuals as target audience or like as a potential prospective student. Then now that we are having the conversation of how do we open our gates to any and all students, regardless of their ability, that's when we are like, oh, we can have specific funds for those individuals. They can have specialized tutors. We can have a more accessible environment for them, and they can be invited to the school environment like everybody and anyone else. And so far that has been what I was working on. And then on a large scale, we're conducting research on how to make even our infrastructures, all school structures, not just the school I used to work in, but as a whole, especially when we're having new buildings that are being built for a library or a school. How do we make sure that it's accessible, not just having ramps and calling it a day? Sometimes it'll be a ramp, and then when you open the door, there's another set of stairs that the ramps didn't really save you from. So how are we being more intentional in this different areas, especially areas like the library and the schools, so that we invite any and all students, and even making sure to add different sensory areas. Like there are specific areas of our school that have different trees so that people can smell those trees and know where they are, regardless of having to rely on Braille to know where they are, or the different classrooms have different textures on them, so that I know my math class has a different texture rather than my English class. I know as someone who's visual like me, might be hard to know which classroom it is, but for other individuals, their other senses are more heightened so that they can leverage that more. And then if we're more intentional in our infrastructure and a lot of things that we do, we're able to bridge the gap that there exists in the educational system, and specifically due to a lot of ongoing wars and conflicts that we have recorded a very large like impairment and disabilities that we have seen in like a couple of years that were not related to like diseases or polios. And so we're going to have a lot of generations who are going to have a lot of deficits. So how do we make sure that our curriculums and also our infrastructures are strong enough so that we can be inclusive to any and all, regardless of their ability and their current needs? And so that was a bit of my Global Schools journey.
Thank you. That was amazing. Inclusivity, and particularly we mentioned about the different smells. I think that's absolutely amazing what you've been doing. So well done. So I don't think Amos is on the call, so I'll just jump to my slides and I will go through what I've been doing. 1 second. Okay. So I started off by looking at this graphic because to me there's lots of maths in that graphic. So I was a maths teacher for 14 years, and as part of my advocacy, I integrated SDGs into maths, but actually across the curriculum as well. So the really easy start for me was to quickly get it into the maths lessons. But like I said, this graphic here lends itself to quite a few easy wins when it comes to some maths questions. So for instance, this one, really easy. I don't know if I'm quite a visual person when I'm teaching maths. So this can be right down from year 7 right the way up, depending on the ability of the people in front of you. But straight away, you've got maths in that question. And I just think, obviously, I've just showed you how to use that, but you know how to do that because you're maths teachers. But straight away, the maths in that, we can pick out really easy maths questions. So we know that things like percentages, for instance, ratios. But then the green questions are what you could just add just to develop that bit of understanding about the SDG that we're looking at. So obviously I've picked out number 4, education, but actually when we're looking at that question there about loss in learning over the pandemic, go them a little bit deeper. So yes, do the maths questions. So how many countries didn't experience a loss of learning? And then you could turn it into a percentage question, but actually delve that a bit deeper. Why do you think those countries had loss in learning? Can you think of at least 3 reasons? What will the loss of learning mean for that future generation? So you're actually having the child think a bit more critically, help them develop the actual understanding of why that happened. And then this second one here that I just pulled was really quickly a graph. And we all know that lots of children get asked in their different GCSE questions in England or your questions abroad, those simple questions, write a sentence describing each of those lines, or which had the best increase since 2015. But once again, you can delve deeper, introduce some green questions. And this would be highlighted in their books of sustainability. Why do you think all countries didn't provide data? What percentage of countries were not part of the data? What reasons could explain why less pupils complete upper secondary than primary school? Think of at least 3. So why is it that less children are completing upper secondary than it is to primary? Is it related to something going on in the community, etc.? So it's once again helping the young people understand the issues that surround it, as well as obviously learning their maths. And that was just taken from the website that I've quoted below. Then you could think about fraction percentages. So these are different ones from different SDGs, and straight away you can relate it to number 3, for instance. So we're looking at the health and well-being. 146 out of 200 countries or areas have already met or are on track to meet the under 5 mortality rate. You could use it as a maths teacher, pull some questions from it and relate it back. Then you've got 1 in 4 young people are not in education, employment, or training. That little bit there with young women, more than twice as likely as young men to be in this situation. That could turn itself really nicely into an algebra question. The one on the left-hand side at the bottom, world's vulnerable population remain uncovered by social protection, and then you've got your percentages. Once again, really good maths that you can pick out of that. And that's how I introduced it really quickly to the maths department, just to encourage them all to get some SDGs into their classrooms. So once you've done a couple, you obviously then can start thinking about what else can I bring into this? So there are 3 and 4 cities, and then straight away that goes down to the public spaces. And then you can ask the young people why, what's happening? Why are the public spaces decreasing, etc. Now, this could be a multi-level problem, this one question here. So you could say, well, how many of the refugees are adults? That's a really simple maths question. But then you could think, right, well, today we're learning about percentages. Let's turn that into a percentage question. So there straight away, thinking, well, we know that 41% of children are children. How are we going to be adults? Obviously, that's easy. And then we could look at subtraction, decimals, but then the green question, explain why the number of refugees have increased. What is meant by refugee? And I related that to a refugee day where we did some work on refugees. Then we can do maths and geography. So straight away, we've got a world map there. We're looking at life expectancy. It's color coded, so you can kind of see the areas in where we're talking about. But then the maths questions, what is the width of each interval? It's understanding key terminology. What is the range of life expectancy? What is the minimum? What is the maximum range? The green questions, why do you think the life expectancy in Europe is higher than that in Southeast Asia? Why do you think there's no data for the countries in white? So these are really simple, quick wins to get SDG education into your maths department. It would literally take a staff training session, just getting that knowledge into the classroom. Here we've got the correlate. Can you describe a correlation? Is there a correlation? Can you draw a line of best fit? Why do you think infants in Afghanistan and Chad have the highest rates? What can be done to reduce the infant mortality rates in Ethiopia? So once again, it's helping them delve deeper into that situation. And here are some more. So I was going to ask you some questions on this. So but we can do that at the end. So these are just more worded questions about how you can pull out different facts and figures. So if, for instance, you're doing something on malaria in geography, or malaria might fall into ethics, it might fall into science, could you work as a team across school to start doing some questions that might relate to that? Could it be something like International Women's Day? Could it be Environmental Day? Could it be Recycling Day? So getting these figures and getting them across the curriculum is a really quick win as well. This was something I used a few years ago for Ocean Day. Obviously, I can't remember the questions that I particularly used, so I've just quickly put this up here. But this is obviously coming around this week. So I just thought maybe you could do a grid of questions around oceans. So could you collect some data on sharks? Could you collect some data on the sea levels, or etc., things like that, like coral bleaching, and then create this, and then you can stick it up on the wall. It could form part of an SDG educational wall. But once again, it's getting them to collect lots of data about the ocean, and at the end of it, analyze all their data. So you've got your SDG 14 at the bottom, using all of your answers to describe what is happening to our oceans. So it's about them interpreting data. Once again, really important for maths. And then this one is one we did cross curricular. So once again, we've asked different departments to pull in us some GCSE questions all around zero hunger. So obviously Oliver Twist was about hunger. Social action, could we do a food drive? Could we get some data from how many people that will feed? What's the impact in the community? Ethics, could we have a discussion about hunger? Could we have a debate? Geography, what's happening with the land? Why can't people grow their own food? History, timeline. Maths, going straight into that, we're looking at interpreting data. Science, you could talk about nutrition, malnutrition, and then once again, what can you do to make a difference? So the young people have investigated all these different issues, they're pulling it together to create a positive difference, which is like a social action kind of task in the community. But thoughts you could consider, like I've just mentioned, you could work with different departments. I think a few people have mentioned that already. So could food tech help you look at food waste? Could you calculate the carbon emissions? Could you look at more sustainable options? What could you do with your food waste? Could you do your apple peelings? Could you make it into apple crisps, etc.? Science could look at your data. Once again, you could work closely with them with maths. So could you do a cross-curricular project? If you do a drop-down day, for instance, like we've done, could you do some projects that all the young people could do? Could you look at geography? Could you look at averages? I know geography do a lot of graphs. They do a lot of averages and medians and things like that. So these are different things you can work with different departments. And once again, I think it was one of the ladies before who mentioned a lot of cross-curricular groups really can encourage maths. So STEM group, for instance, we did a lot of STEM. So I'm looking at insects and plotting them onto the graphs and things like that. Results from experiments, create that love of learning. If you've got the love of learning, you've got the maths engagement, this can fit really easily into your curriculum. So please feel free to engage with me on any social media and I'll help you further. But we're now going to ask if there's any questions out there for any of the speakers on the panel today. Any questions? Anybody, any questions? Gilson? Hello, how are you?
I'm all right, thank you, Sarah. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Well, who would you like to
Okay.
ask a question?
Not really a question. I don't know if it's only time for questions. I have a contribution from what you've shared, how we're supposed to apply mathematics. Like here in Zambia right now, we have a disaster due to drought. And interesting from what I've learned from you, I'll be able to share with the kids. In Zambia, we have 116 districts. And out of the 116 districts, 16 districts are devastated by drought. And even World Bank is using the same district. And out of the 16 districts, we have 6 million people who are going to be affected by hunger in Zambia as I'm speaking. And these figures are used by our government. Even World Bank is using them to supply relief food. So mathematics here is being applied. When I get back to the children who have to sit down, how is climate change affecting Zambians? So in that, there will be that application, even work with my colleagues from the social science department. Sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gilson. Would anybody like to add to that or ask another question? I see a few of you have been asking for recording in slides. I think that's going to be organised afterwards, if that's okay. Anybody else want a question? You just unmute yourself and just ask. There's quite a few people on the screens. I can't see everybody.
Sarah, I
Sarah.
see there is a
There's
question
a question
about
in the chat room.
incorporating
Oh, sorry.
SDGs. In primary, there was one earlier, and then specifically in kindergartens. Maybe we can open that to the panelists.
Yeah, panelists. Who is it that was talking about primary schools earlier? Emma, was it you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
May I know what the question is? Like, I'm just. Yeah. Can you repeat what the question is? Is it how to integrate?
Yeah.
How would you? Yeah.
It was, can we integrate SDG in math in kindergarten as well?
Yeah, definitely. When counting, okay. I think the different various methods of teaching kindergarten. I mean, naturally have that process. Like there was this Waldorf training. I mean, which I attended, where there was different drawings with the colors, where we can get the children do some artwork. And when they do the artwork, it was all about drawing a river, and in that, I mean, those animals, like the sea animals there, fish, and you can just ask children, like how many fish are there now? What if this fish swallows something, and what happens to that? What should we not do? What should we not put inside water to not get that pollute? You can slowly take those simple conversations, like how we talk to small kids. Okay, I think that is how you can leverage those thoughts in the kids, like, and slowly get, definitely they will not understand what SDG is all about in that age, but then these conversations will develop them. Yes, so this is what I should not be polluting river, or I should not be polluting the environment here. All those basic things probably can be taught when we are doing some drawing, or in math counting, like when we ask them to count, like inside the aquarium, like how many fish can you see inside the aquarium? Now what happens if one fish is not there? Why will the fish die? What could be the reason? What should I not be doing? Okay, so you can go on conversations like those. Is there anyone who wants to add more on this?
I think by what you've just said, I think you're right, but I think primary school children like storytelling. So if you can tell an SDG through a story and then say, sharks are disappearing in the ocean, shall we talk about why that's happening? And then once again, you could bring everything shark-like, or bring an element of whatever it is that you potentially are studying in school. So I know, for instance, my niece absolutely adores sharks, and I know they've had a whole topic about that. So bringing SDGs into that, once again, will align with SD education, cross-curricular, bringing in maths in as well. So yeah. Anybody else got anything to add? Any more questions?
Hi, can I come in? This is Shilpa from India. My
Hi.
question is, can you suggest me anything related to kindergarten? Like what all we can, because I am taking a pre-primary classes.
I think the United Nations and the Sustainable Development, I think there's quite a lot of young people's videos about SDGs, if I'm right in saying, Amanda.
I'm sorry.
So I don't know if Amanda's still on the call, but there's lots of videos on YouTube. If you go onto the Global Schools or the SDNS network on YouTube, there's lots of videos,
Okay.
and they are targeted at young people.
Thank you.
May I
Now,
add
as I
something?
mentioned there, I mean, even those counting activities, what I showed, I mean, can be used in kindergarten, because I mean, kindergarten children will be able to do, I mean, very basic math like counting. I mean, that should be their grade level expectation of math. So I think those counting and how to identify the recyclable products and how to categorize them, I think that should be fine with the kindergarten students. I think I've answered your question, Shilpa, if that would have helped you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
We've
And
got
even measuring the water usage. Sorry, Sarah. I mean, even measuring the water usage, I mean, might help them. Like,
yeah, we have is it Anya with his hand raised?
Yeah.
Hi.
Good afternoon, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Julius Oniya. I'm in Nigeria, and I also presently in Nigeria. Yeah, I want to ask if you people partner with other people outside your judiciary. Why I say so is this issue of maths is a big challenge, especially to students in Africa. Like somebody like me, I'm a teacher and I teach maths and science. And there are a lot of people who actually
If we're lost. If we lost connection, or is it just me that can't hear him?
I think we lost him.
Yeah.
I want to ask, do you have any programs probably to partner with someone like me or other people so we can bring more people on board, especially at the lower class, build their foundations before they lose interest in it? Thank you. Yeah, that's my question. Hello?
Yeah. So anyone, Lizzie, do you want to take that question?
I'll take that.
Yeah.
So when I introduced myself, I mentioned I was Zimbabwean and I'm working in the Middle East. And what you've highlighted is one of the issues that you note as an African educator, and then you move away from Africa and you get to teach maths in another setting and an environment. And shockingly, it took me leaving Africa to realize how easy it is to teach maths in Africa compared to the rest of the world, because there's a lot of practical examples to what we would like to teach. And I think also in terms of even just introducing sustainability in maths classes in Africa, it is way easier because the problems that we're trying to solve with the SDGs are practical problems that are affecting Africa on the ground. So I think it was Hema who was talking about filtering a river and reducing pollution. In other parts of the world, this would be abstract, but in Africa, this is real because you're talking about water availability, and especially in rural communities where access to clean water is limited. I think the biggest challenge I would give teachers based in Africa is, instead of looking for someone to help you, look at the strength you have. You are amazing educators who can actually solve day-to-day problems in your community. And that's where it starts. It doesn't have to be on a large scale. It could be just trying to see how students can use old tires from cars and cut them up and make shoes because they have to walk large distances, and that's recycling. There's a tremendous wealth of information that I think educators in Africa have, and there should be a drive to solving problems within ourselves rather than looking for external support.
Sarah, can I add, please?
Yeah.
Answering to what Shilpa was saying for the junior kids, you know, you have a number of videos on YouTube on plastic menace. So like, for example, if you show them one video, which is story of a plastic bag, or maybe a turtle entangled in plastic, right? And then ask them to count the number of plastic wrappers they have thrown in the trash bin and how they can reduce. Start with reducing one at least a day. In this way, you can teach them counting, maybe add addition, subtraction, and at the same time, connect environmental issues with them.
I think that's perfect. I think you could also look at maybe like how long it takes for a plastic bag or a nappy or a sanitary towel, something like that, to decompose, and they could do all sorts with that, graphs, pictograms, displays. I think there's a lot around. Even just if you think about July, it's plastic free month. Maybe you could all do something in July for plastic free. So I think that's a really good point that you've put across there. Thank you. There was a question in the chat from Azima. How to motivate a student who is attention deficit, especially who forgets little things. Would any of the panel like to take that question? So how to motivate a student who is attention deficit?
I can answer
Go
that
on,
question.
Yeah.
I think it starts with initially recognizing that it is a learning disability, because it can be a very isolating thing when all of your mates are very engaged in class and you seem to be distracted, even though you're very interested in the topic. So I think initially creating awareness that, I mean, it is a learning disability, but then it doesn't have to be, you know, it's not something that's set in stone. They can be a lot of things we can incorporate within our curriculums and how we teach in order for that not to be a barrier. So initially recognizing it, and then after recognizing it, having a lot of things that can help deal with that. So maybe if there's a test, I know in the US, some of the US colleges, they have this thing where you have 1.5 hour. And so if the test is typically an hour, then you have an hour and a half. Or if there's like a specific task that is given for the classroom, you can have your own like space in a separate office so that you don't feel like you're getting a lot of sensor and a lot of stimulation. And so just initially recognizing it and explaining to the student what's happening so that they can also understand, because if you don't understand, if you know better, you do better. If not, you're always going to assume that there's something wrong with you. So I think initially recognizing it, and then also working with your parents and also with the professors and teachers so that they can alter their curriculums accordingly. So I think that's how. And then, you build a lot of steps. So for those individuals, rather than having an hour class, sometimes having breaks, allowing them to walk around in the classroom, or if they feel like they're getting overstimulated, you can allow them without having to ask you, oh, can I go to the bathroom or can I go out to like just gather myself again, allowing them to be able to do whatever and however they can so that they can gather their full attention again. So giving them the full autonomy and helping them, educating them with the matter really helps, at least in my experience.
Thank you. Okay, so panelists, I'm going to give you one quick question, 10 seconds each. One last piece, final word of advice. Adrian?
Yeah, I kind of just want to mirror what your presentation. I think just getting ESD into the classroom, those easy wins, and just exposing students to the Sustainable Development Goals. I think that goes a long way as an initial start, and then from there, you can hopefully inspire action when they want to act on it, and they've got that inspiration from your lessons.
Yeah, definitely works. I had a lot of experience. Definitely works. Well done, Lizzie.
If you work in an institute where you can't fully implement education for sustainability, my idea is start in your classroom. The students will drive the need for the inclusion, and it is way easier when it comes from the students than when it is a teacher requesting for a change in the curriculum.
Love that. Heather?
I just want to say, convey this message to everyone, just spark that in that is child, the need of the hour. I mean, that spark will definitely change the individual and change the globe, okay? Be it any subject, but math can be a part of that, be it any subject. I mean, that's what I wanted to convey to the world. I think, I mean, we are heading towards 2030 to 2040 now.
I think young people are the future leaders, aren't they? So they're the ones that if you inspire, they'll just flourish. Yeah. And Beza?
I think mine would be, you know, whichever goal you want to tackle, whichever subject. I think I might be paraphrasing here, but Roosevelt said it best when he said, like, do what you can with what you have and start from where you are. And so the whole journey might sound very overwhelming, but just start from wherever you are, and you never know what happens in a year, in 6 months, maybe it might take 5 years. So it's a humbling journey, but do whatever you can and you'll be surprised at the outcome.
Perfect, thank you. So I'm going to hand back over to Amanda. I think Amanda has some news for some upcoming sessions. Thank you, everybody.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to say thank you so much for participating in the panel. Thank you to all of the panelists. We're really, really glad to have you share your expertise. You're all doing wonderful work. And I'm sure that everyone here hopefully learned something today and took something from the session. And also to thank you for all of the attendees for spending this time with us. If the panelists would like to, put their LinkedIns or their emails into the chat, please feel free to do so. Just to clarify the question on the recording, we will share the recording in our newsletter. Please sign up globalschoolsprogram.org, and also it will be on our YouTube page. The next session that we will be hosting will be on Saturday, June 22nd. So this professional development session will be specifically on leveraging community resources for sustainability engagement in schools. So I know we did one on partnerships, but this will be more focused on, how to mobilize resources in your community to support sustainability projects. So we're very excited. This will be led by Alexa, one of our team members, who also has been a sustainability coordinator at her own school and has also held a variety of positions where she's been making partnerships in the community. So we're very excited to have her doing that session. So we hope to see everyone again on June 22nd. Please sign up for the newsletter so you can get the reminder emails about our sessions. And once again, thank you to all of the panelists and everyone here. Thank you to Sarah, our wonderful moderator, and we will see everyone at the next session. So.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.